Let's venture back down TurboView's memory lane with a little R&R. Hey everybody, welcome back to another installment of Random Rerun. In this little series, we take a look back at a TurboGrafx 16 game we reviewed on this channel in the far away past. And since we're getting into the Halloween season, I think it's time to revisit the horror classic original, Splatterhouse, which was TurboView's episode number 30 from October of the first year of the series. In 1988, Namco released Splatterhouse into the arcades. I'm sure everyone is aware of this title by now and how it expanded over the years. But the 80s arcade original was a super cool action game with, to me, a lovely 70s, 80s horror movie vibe. Even the story is perfect for this kind of genre, right? Rick and Jennifer, a couple of college kids, decide to visit the West Mansion, also known as Splatterhouse. Honestly, the nickname of the mansion would have been my first clue to stay the hell away from there. But anyway, guess what happens? Jennifer gets kidnapped and a weird mask snaps onto Rick's face. A mask with ancient spiritual powers that he must depend on to survive. I mean, there's more to it than that, but who cares? Isn't it just a perfect story to supplement splatting enemies with 2x4s? I think so. I have some fond childhood memories of the arcade version, as one arcade in Ohio that we used to visit actually had it. You know, if I close my eyes, I can envision a back row of pinball machines at this place, which you know I obviously spent a lot of time at, and to the right, against the wall in the corner, I can see that arcade cabinet of Splatterhouse. I realize that these days it's quite tame, but man, at the time I couldn't help but play it a lot, trying to beat it with as few coins as possible. Namco splats it onto the PC Engine, as well as transferring it to the American TurboGrafx 16, which would be a console exclusive here. I think they figured it would kind of be a killer app for the system. At the time, I seem to remember a little more marketing done for this one also.
Tucker is a 2x4, and you say you want to play this game?
Let's just say when I picked up my TG16 in 1991, Splatterhouse was one of the first dozen games I had to find. And I was not disappointed. While it's not perfect, and there are numerous downgrades, the TurboGrafx does a great job replicating the arcade experience of the game. Though I have to say, the only thing I miss is that pop sound when you cleave an enemy. I mean, then again, you don't get the cleaver early in this console port, so there's also that. Obviously, the TurboView's episode and my memories revolve around the American version, which had some tweaks from even the PC Engine edition. So I guess if you want the full experience on the TurboGrafx, you'll probably want the PC Engine version and a converter. The American version had some censoring here and there. The biggest change, though, was the removal of Rick's white terror mask, which was changed to purple or red, or reddish purple. I mean, it looks purple in the game, but it's red in the artwork and even in the commercial, so I don't know, could be either way. Most people say it's red, I say it's kinda purple. Anyway, this was done because they felt the white mask, which looked like a hockey mask in the game, I mean, let's face it, might get the lawyers representing Jason Voorhees in an uproar. I don't know about that really, but it's an interesting story, and it kind of makes this version of the game unique. I have to tell you, as a TurboGrafx owner at the time, it was pretty cool having an exclusive title like this to brag about. Not that anybody cared. Of course, the series would grow with more titles, and obviously the Genesis sequels started rolling out, which I also loved. But I have to say, for me, the original Splatterhouse is very nostalgic, and I still really enjoy it. Plus the front of the box and that silly warning. I mean, even that was done tongue-in-cheek, which fits perfectly with the game inside. If you're interested in this game's history, there are a lot of great videos on YouTube and a whole bunch of stuff online to check out, and I totally recommend it. In the meantime, that'll wrap up this edition of Random Rerun. Now stay tuned because we're going to roll the original TurboViews episode in its entirety. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next Splat from the past. Take care. When you take a look back at games that caused a bit of controversy, it's always good for a laugh because today they all seem pretty tame. In 1988, Namco released an arcade machine called Splatterhouse, one of the first true horror games. It had that 70s, 80s horror movie feel, and it was great. And it bugged a lot of people. The graphic violence and gore at the time caused some US arcade owners to ban it from their lineup. Personally, I think they were just a little scared. Yeah. Well, TurboGrafx owners were soon to be very proud, as Namco translated this popular arcade guilty pleasure exclusively for the console. It even came with one of the first warnings on a game box. The horrifying theme of this game may be inappropriate for young children and cowards. The story? Well, Rick and his girlfriend Jennifer are parapsychology majors, and as part of a school project, they decide to visit the abandoned West Mansion, also known as Splatterhouse. Bad move. In a nutshell, Jennifer gets kidnapped, and a mask is now covering Rick's face. A mask with ancient spiritual powers that he must depend on for the strength to survive. Splatterhouse is a basic 7-stage side-scrolling action game. Each area is filled with bizarre walking zombies, chained corpses, bats, fire logs, crawling hands, and ticked-off chairs. Sit down or die. There are also spikes in the ground, spikes floating in water, spikes spinning on the floor. Who the hell built this place? Refusing to be known as a wuss, Rick finds ways to splat his enemies using his bare hands, his feet, and a powerful sliding kick. I mean, hell, the guy punches knives for God's sakes. Knives. Can we say hardcore? Conveniently, various weapons are scattered around, including the popular 2x4, which slams the enemies against the back wall. It is just sickly satisfying. There is the golden cleaver, which can be swung like a baseball bat, and the shotgun that holds 8 rounds. Rick can also toss stones, monkey wrenches, and spears, which are a bit more powerful than his bare hands. Now, the first couple of stages are pretty short, with only a few areas. But later, there are some alternate paths that can be taken sometimes by your choosing, other times by someone else's. At the end of each is an end boss, or some kind of scary and strange room filled with scenery obviously trained to kill. Now, the graphics in Splatterhouse are gross, bizarre, and very dark. Sweet. While the TurboGrafx does a faithful job recreating the arcade look, there are noticeable downgrades to animations and backgrounds. For the technology that was available though, I'd say Namco still did a great job here. The sprites are rather large and they were able to recreate the main players with pretty nice detail. Most of the sounds and music are similar and ported over well. There are a few missing groans, and things are a step down in terms of their impact. Plus, I do miss the pop sound from the arcade when you whack a zombie's head off. Ah, the sweet sound of victory. But the TurboGrafx does a decent job recreating things, and it does work well in its own limited way. Rick has pretty good control, though he is a tad clunky and sluggish, but then again, he also was in the arcade. He can punch, kick, and pick up weapons quickly. The jumping isn't bad, but the sliding kick, it's not always consistent, and there are times you will lose hearts trying to get it to work. I dropped a ton of quarters into the arcade Splatterhouse, and I played this version a lot. I always thought the atmosphere was perfect, and you have to love the typical scare tactics like unexpected enemies smashing through mirrors, or thinking that a boss is defeated, then wham! Another one attacks out of nowhere. While it isn't a perfect platformer, and it does show its age, to me it is still fun to play. Now, the American version of Splatterhouse is often criticized for being very censored in comparison to the PC Engine version. The obvious Jason Voorhees signature white hockey mask was changed to purple, probably to avoid a Paramount lawsuit if they were in a bad mood that day. They also changed some religious items like the upside-down cross end boss and the setting in the church. There are a few other minor things, but everything else is pretty much the same, and it isn't that drastically different as some may make it sound. Because Rick is a rather large character, he is very vulnerable to hits. The TurboGrafx version is a tad easier than its arcade predecessor, but there is still some trial and error involved, and you probably won't beat it right away. Once you do, though, hold select at the title screen and play the hard setting. This parallels the arcade difficulty a little better with more enemies, which equals more splat, which therefore equals more guilty fun. Splatterhouse on the Turbo is a pretty darn close translation to the arcade platform gorefest. While not perfect, I think Namco did a pretty good job considering the limitations of the hardware at the time. Every stage is included, and if you enjoy the game like I do, I think you'll find the TurboGrafx version is a lot of fun to play. Although tame by today's standards, Splatterhouse is a fun glimpse at something they say we kids, quote, should not have been playing. Well, we did. Take that, society.